The full moon hung like a silent witness over Boston Harbor, its light catching the metal barrel of Officer Marcus Bailey's service weapon. His breath came in short, controlled bursts as he pressed his back against the shipping container, the salt-tinged air sharp in his lungs. Beside him, Ranger, his German Shepherd K9 partner, remained perfectly still, ears perked forward, sensing the danger lurking between the towering stacks of containers. "We've got them cornered," Marcus whispered into his radio. "Northeast quadrant, row D, requesting backup." Static crackled in response. Then silence. A flicker of movement caught Marcus's eye, shadow against shadow. Ranger's muscles tensed beneath his tactical vest. The dog's training kept him quiet, but his amber eyes tracked the threat with laser focus. "Something's wrong," Marcus muttered, the hairs on his nape rising. The night had suddenly grown too quiet, the darkness too thick. His instincts screamed a warning. The first shot came without warning, pinging off the metal inches from his head. "Hope you enjoyed this story." Leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear where you're watching from. Now, let's continue with the story. The night erupted into chaos. Marcus ducked low, returning fire as he and Ranger retreated behind a forklift. More shots rang out. Too many for the two smugglers they'd been tracking. "This is Officer Bailey." Taking heavy fire at Boston Harbor. "Pier 16. He shouted into his radio, met again with only static. The realization hit him like ice water. His communications had been jammed. Ranger growled, a low rumble in his chest. The K9 officer had been with Marcus for 3 years, and his instincts were rarely wrong. Someone had set a trap, and they'd walked right into it. "We need to move, boy," Marcus whispered, checking the small camera attached to Ranger's tactical vest. The red light blinked steadily, still recording. Whatever happened tonight, there would be evidence. They darted between containers, the moonlight creating a maze of light and shadow. Marcus counted at least 4 shooters closing in, their movements precise and coordinated. These weren't ordinary smugglers, they moved with military precision. A bullet grazed Marcus's shoulder, spinning him against a container. He hissed in pain but kept moving. Ranger stayed close, matching his handler's pace perfectly. They reached the edge of the pier, the dark water of Boston Harbor lapping against concrete below. Marcus's police cruiser was parked 50 yards away, past an open stretch of asphalt, too exposed. "Freeze!" "Police!" came a voice from their left. Marcus turned, relief flooding through him at the sight of approaching headlights. But as the black SUV skidded to a stop and men in tactical gear poured out, that relief curdled into dread. These weren't Boston PD. "Bailey," called a familiar voice that sent a chill down Marcus's spine. "You should have let it go." From the shadows stepped a tall figure Marcus recognized immediately. Jeremy Frost, former CIA operative, now head of security for Senator Edward Hargrove. Behind him stood 4 armed men, weapons trained on Marcus and Ranger. "You're trafficking military-grade weapons, Frost," Marcus replied, keeping his voice steady despite the hammering of his heart. "Using Hargrove's shipping company as cover. Did the senator put you up to this?" Frost's expression hardened. "You have no idea what you've stumbled into. This goes way beyond weapons." Marcus calculated his options, all bad. But there was one thing he could do. Dropping to one knee beside Ranger, he whispered, "Evidence command. Find Catherine." The dog's ears twitched in recognition of the emergency protocol they'd practiced countless times. "Whatever you're thinking, don't," Frost warned, stepping closer. In one fluid motion, Marcus unclipped Ranger's leash. "Go!" he commanded, firing 2 shots in the air. Ranger bolted, disappearing between containers with the camera still recording. 2 men pursued immediately, but Marcus knew his partner. The dog was too fast, too smart to be caught easily. "That was a mistake," Frost said coldly, closing the distance between them. The last thing Marcus saw before the blow to his head was the Boston skyline glittering across the harbor, beautiful and oblivious to the darkness unfolding at its edge. As consciousness slipped away, his final thought was of Ranger, carrying the truth into the night. 20 miles away, in the small town of Ashton Falls, Maxwell Stone Sullivan had no idea that his carefully constructed life was about to collide with a wounded German shepherd and the conspiracy that came with him. The rumble of motorcycles cut through the quiet evening as 5 riders carved their way along the winding road outside Ashton Falls. Their leather jackets, emblazoned with the Iron Raptor's insignia, a metallic bird of prey with wings outstretched, gleamed under the streetlights. At the head of the formation rode Maxwell Stone Sullivan, his weathered face partially hidden behind dark aviator sunglasses despite the late hour. The road stretched before him like a ribbon of freedom, yet his mind remained shackled to memories he couldn't outrun. "Another successful run," Victor called out as they slowed at an intersection. His voice carried a note of satisfaction that Maxwell didn't share. The Iron Raptors had just finished delivering a shipment of parts to a garage 2 towns over. Legitimate business, unlike some of their past ventures. Since Maxwell had taken leadership 3 years ago, he'd been steering the club away from its more questionable activities. Not everyone approved of this new direction. "Let's take the back road home," Maxwell instructed, veering onto a narrow stretch that wound through dense woodland. The others followed without question. When Stone spoke, the Raptors listened. The forest opened to reveal a straight, empty stretch of asphalt. Maxwell accelerated, feeling the machine respond beneath him. For a moment, it almost drowned out the echoes of gunfire that perpetually rang in his ears, remnants of Afghanistan that no amount of distance or time seemed to silence. Victor pulled alongside him. "You've been quiet all night? Still thinking about that call from Eliza?" Maxwell's jaw tightened. Eliza Cypher Morgan had reached out after nearly 2 years of silence. Just checking in, she'd claimed, but Maxwell knew better. Cypher never made social calls. "It's nothing," he replied, throttling forward to end the conversation. As they rounded a bend, Maxwell's headlight caught something in the road ahead, a dark mass on the pavement. He raised his fist, the universal signal to stop. The line of motorcycles slowed to a halt, engines growling impatiently. "What is it?" Noah called from the back, his lanky frame leaning to see past the others. Maxwell dismounted, approaching the shape cautiously. In the glow of the headlights, he made out the tan and black fur of a German shepherd, its body rising and falling with labored breaths. Blood matted its coat. "It's a dog," he announced, kneeling beside the injured animal. Olivia quickly joined him, her medical training kicking in. "He's alive, but these wounds—" She gently examined the dog, her touch professional yet tender. Maxwell noticed the tactical vest still attached to the animal's body. The lettering was unmistakable. K9 unit. His pulse quickened. "It's a police dog," Victor hissed, immediately scanning the area. "Stone, we need to go. Now." But Maxwell wasn't listening. His attention fixed on something else. A small camera attached to the dog's collar, its red light still blinking. Recording. He pressed a button on the side, rewinding the footage. The small screen illuminated his face as chaotic images played out. The dog running alongside a police cruiser, shots being fired, men in tactical gear pursuing. The officer's voice came through clearly. "Evidence command. Find Catherine." Maxwell's blood ran cold. He recognized one of the attackers, Jeremy Frost, a man he'd served with in Afghanistan before Frost joined the CIA, a man he'd once called friend. "What is it?" Olivia asked, noticing his expression. "Trouble," Maxwell replied grimly. In the distance, sirens wailed, growing louder. "This dog's partner was ambushed, and I know who did it," Victor cursed. "Police are coming. If they find us with an injured K9, we're done. Let's go." Maxwell looked down at the dog, seeing not just an injured animal, but a soldier left behind. Memories flashed. Another dog, another time, dust and blood, and the promise he'd failed to keep in Kabul. "No," Maxwell said, his voice cutting through the night with quiet authority. "We're taking him with us." "Are you insane?" Victor's face contorted with disbelief. "That's a cop dog." "And someone tried to kill him," Maxwell countered, carefully gathering the German shepherd in his arms. The dog whimpered, but didn't resist. "Olivia, can you treat him?" She nodded. "I'll need supplies." "Noah, get the van," Maxwell ordered. "We'll meet at the East Hideout." Noah hesitated only briefly before peeling off into the darkness. The sirens grew louder, blue and red lights now visible through the trees. "Stone!" Victor began. "I'm not asking." Maxwell cut him off, his eyes hard as flint. "This dog is evidence. Whatever's on this camera got his handler taken or killed. Frost is involved, which means this goes deep." The weight of the injured K9 pressed against Maxwell's chest, blood seeping into his leather jacket. The dog's eyes flickered open momentarily, meeting Maxwell's gaze with what seemed like a desperate plea. "I've got you, soldier," Maxwell whispered, words he'd spoken once before in another life. This time, he wouldn't fail. The distinctive rumble of their emergency van approached from the opposite direction of the sirens. Maxwell moved toward it with purpose, the wounded K9 cradled in his arms, his decision already reshaping the destiny of everyone around him. Behind them, the night filled with the wail of approaching police cars, hunting for the very evidence Maxwell now carried away into the shadows. The abandoned boathouse along the Merrimack River had served the Iron Raptors well over the years, hidden by overgrown willows and accessible only by a narrow dirt path. It offered both privacy and escape routes. Tonight, it provided something else, sanctuary for a wounded K9 officer. Inside, the air hung heavy with the smell of motor oil, leather, and now antiseptic. Maxwell stood over the makeshift examination table where Olivia worked methodically on the German shepherd. Her hands moved with practiced precision, cleaning wounds and applying sutures. Her time as an army medic had prepared her for exactly this kind of field treatment. 2 gunshot wounds, she reported, not looking up from her work. One grazed his hindquarter, the other lodged in muscle tissue near his shoulder. I've removed the bullet. She held up a small metal fragment. He's lost blood, but no vital organs were hit. He's strong. Maxwell nodded, his eyes fixed on the dog's steady breathing. They'd given him a mild sedative, just enough to keep him calm during treatment. Does he have a name? Noah asked, hovering nervously nearby, tools scattered around him from where he'd been reinforcing the boathouse's security measures. Maxwell carefully examined the dog's collar. Ranger, he read aloud. Boston PDK 9 Unit. Victor paced near the entrance, tension radiating from his stocky frame. This is insane, Stone. Boston PD will be looking for their dog. We're harboring evidence in a police investigation. Do you understand what that means? I understand exactly what it means, Maxwell replied, his voice calm but edged with steel. He held up the small camera he'd removed from Ranger's vest. And this is why we couldn't leave him. He connected the camera to an old laptop they kept at the hideout for emergencies. The screen flickered to life, bathing the dimly lit boathouse in a pale blue glow. The others gathered around as Maxwell accessed the video files. The footage began smoothly. Ranger and his handler, Officer Marcus Bailey, patrolling the docks at Boston Harbor, normal police work. Then came the discovery of a shipping container with its seal broken. Bailey radioed in, but received only static. Communications jammer, Noah commented quietly. Professional job. The footage became chaotic as gunfire erupted. Bailey and Ranger took cover, then attempted to retreat. The camera caught glimpses of their pursuers, men in tactical gear moving with military precision. Then came a clear shot of Jeremy Frost emerging from a black SUV. "Freeze it there," Maxwell instructed, pointing at the screen. "That's Jeremy Frost, former Delta Force, then CIA. We served together in Afghanistan." Victor leaned closer, his skepticism momentarily replaced by interest. "What's a CIA guy doing shooting at cops?" "Last I heard, he was heading security for Senator Edward Hargrove," Maxwell said, his expression darkening. "The one running for governor?" Olivia asked, joining them, after finishing Ranger's treatment. Maxwell nodded. "Hargrove Enterprises owns half the shipping operations in Boston Harbor." The footage continued, showing Bailey's last desperate moments before ordering Ranger to flee with the evidence. The final clear image was a partial license plate on one of the black SUVs. "Play that again," Noah requested. Maxwell rewound to the license plate. Noah scribbled the numbers on a scrap of paper. "I can work with this. Run it through some databases, see what comes up." "This isn't just about a cop and his dog," Maxwell said gravely. "Military-grade tactics, communications jammers, a CIA operative turned private security. Bailey found something he wasn't supposed to find, and now he's either dead or being held somewhere. And we're in the middle of it," Victor said, his voice hard. "This is exactly the kind of heat we've been avoiding, Stone. We've got legitimate business now. People who depend on us." Maxwell's jaw tightened. "I know what's at stake." "Do you?" Victor challenged, stepping closer. "Because it looks like you're chasing ghosts again. Just like Kabul." The hideout fell silent. No one mentioned Kabul. Ever. It was the unspoken wound in Maxwell's history that everyone knew better than to touch. Ranger whimpered softly from the table, breaking the tension. Despite the sedative, the dog was awakening, his amber eyes finding Maxwell across the room. "You don't have to say it," Maxwell told Victor, his voice low. "I know exactly what I'm doing. Whatever's on this camera got a good cop targeted. If Frost is involved, it's bigger than smuggling. It's bigger than us." He moved to Ranger's side, placing a steady hand on the dog's head. The German shepherd's eyes locked onto his, a look of intelligence and pain that struck somewhere deep in Maxwell's chest. "Bailey told him to find someone named Catherine," Maxwell continued, "his last command before he was taken. Ranger was following orders when we found him." Olivia checked the dog's vitals again. "He should rest for at least 24 hours. Those wounds need time." "We may not have 24 hours," Maxwell replied. "Frost knows the dog escaped with evidence. He'll be looking." As if summoned by his words, Noah's phone beeped with an alert from the motion sensors they'd placed along the access road. He quickly pulled up the security feed on his tablet. A black sedan moved slowly along the road, headlights off. "Looks like they're already here," Noah said quietly. Maxwell's expression hardened as he looked at Ranger, then back at the security feed. "Noah, kill the lights. Victor, get the weapons ready. Olivia, stay with Ranger." As darkness enveloped the boathouse, Maxwell felt a familiar calm settling over him, the clarity that came before combat. He'd left that life behind years ago, or so he'd thought. But watching Ranger struggle to stand despite his injuries, Maxwell recognized a kindred spirit, another warrior who couldn't escape what he was made for. "They're not taking him," Maxwell said with quiet certainty as he checked his weapon. "Not tonight, not ever." Outside, the sedan crept closer, its occupants unaware they were hunting those who had spent lifetimes learning to be predators themselves. Maxwell moved silently through the darkened boathouse, positioning himself near a gap in the weathered boards that offered a clear view of the approaching vehicle. Years of combat had taught him to control his breathing, to find that perfect stillness where time seemed to slow. Beside him, Victor crouched with a shotgun, his earlier objections momentarily set aside in the face of immediate threat. "Single vehicle, at least 3 occupants," Maxwell whispered, tracking the sedan's progress through the trees. "Professional approach. Headlights off, slow movement." On the far side of the boathouse, Noah had positioned himself with a clear line to their escape vehicles. Olivia remained with Ranger, one hand reassuringly placed on the dog's neck, the other holding her 9mm with practiced familiarity. The sedan stopped about 50 yards from the boathouse, its engine still running. 3 figures emerged, moving with the deliberate precision that Maxwell recognized all too well. The same coordinated movements he'd seen in the camera footage. "Frost's men," he breathed. The intruders spread out, tactical flashlights sweeping the perimeter in controlled arcs. They carried themselves like soldiers, not thugs. One spoke quietly into a radio, confirming Maxwell's suspicion that this was just the advance team. "We need to move," Victor whispered urgently. "More will be coming." Maxwell weighed their options. A direct confrontation would be dangerous, potentially fatal, not just for his people, but for Ranger, who needed medical attention beyond what Olivia could provide in field conditions. His decision came swiftly. "Noah, start the van, quiet as possible. Olivia, get Ranger ready to transport." He turned to Victor. "We'll provide cover if needed." As the others prepared to move, Maxwell's gaze fell on Ranger. The German Shepherd was alert despite his injuries, ears forward, sensing the danger outside. Their eyes met across the darkness, and Maxwell felt a jolt of recognition. The same focused intensity he'd seen in another set of eyes long ago. Parker. The name surfaced unbidden from the depths of his memory. Afghanistan 6 years earlier. The dust never seemed to settle in Kabul, hanging perpetually in the air like a veil between worlds. Maxwell Sullivan, then Staff Sergeant with Delta Force, moved through the crowded marketplace with Parker, his military working dog, watchful at his side. Just another routine patrol, Jeremy Frost, his team leader, had assured them that morning. Nothing about Afghanistan was routine. Parker stopped suddenly, ears alert, body rigid with alarm. The Belgian Malinois had detected something, explosive material, a threat. Maxwell trusted that signal more than any intelligence briefing. "Contact! Possible IED!" he radioed, signaling his team to fall back. The explosion came not from the ground, but from a nearby rooftop. An ambush, not an IED. The marketplace erupted in chaos. Gunfire ripped through the air as Maxwell and his team scrambled for cover. Parker stayed by his side through the firefight, even after taking shrapnel in his flank. When Maxwell was hit, the dog stood over him, protecting him until extraction arrived. 3 days later, recovering in the field hospital, Maxwell learned that Frost had taken Parker on another mission. "Couldn't wait for you to heal up," his commander explained. "The dog never returned. Killed in action," they said. No body recovered, just another casualty in an endless war. But the mission report had inconsistencies, details Maxwell could never reconcile, questions Frost refused to answer clearly. 2 months later, Maxwell completed his final tour and left the military, carrying with him the weight of a promise broken to the one partner who had never betrayed him. "Stone," Victor's urgent whisper pulled Maxwell back to the present. "They're moving closer." Maxwell blinked away the memory, focusing on the immediate threat. "On my signal, we moved to the van. Fast and quiet." He made his way to Ranger's side, where Olivia had prepared a makeshift stretcher from a canvas tarp. "He shouldn't be moved," she whispered, concern evident in her voice. "But we don't have much choice." Maxwell gently ran his hand over Ranger's head. "You're tougher than you look, aren't you, boy?" The dog's eyes remained fixed on him, alert and trusting in a way that twisted something in Maxwell's chest. Outside, the flashlight beams drew closer. One of the men had reached the boathouse's outer wall, his shadow visible through the gaps in the wooden planks. "Now," Maxwell commanded softly. They moved as one unit, practiced in emergency evacuations from years of close calls. Noah backed the van to the boathouse's rear entrance while Victor covered their escape route. Maxwell and Olivia carefully loaded Ranger into the vehicle. the dog remaining remarkably calm despite the pain the movement must have caused. Just as Maxwell was about to climb in, a beam of light caught the van's rear bumper. "Contact!" came a shout from outside. "East side, they're moving!" Victor fired a warning shot over the intruders' heads, buying precious seconds as Maxwell slammed the van's doors shut. Noah gunned the engine, tires spinning on the loose dirt as they accelerated down the hidden track that ran alongside the river. Gunfire erupted behind them, bullets pinging off the van's metal frame. Victor returned fire from the passenger window while Maxwell shielded Ranger's body with his own. "Hard right at the fork," Maxwell ordered as they approached a split in the track. Noah veered sharply, taking the less obvious path that wound deeper into the woods before eventually connecting to a service road. The sounds of pursuit faded behind them. For now, they'd escaped. In the dim interior of the van, illuminated only by the dashboard lights, Maxwell examined Ranger more carefully. During their hasty departure, he'd noticed something unusual. A small lump beneath the skin at the back of the dog's neck, too uniform to be natural. "Olivia, take a look at this," he said, gently turning Ranger's head. She leaned in, her fingers probing the area professionally. "That's not normal," she confirmed. "Too symmetrical. Feels like—" Her eyes widened slightly. "A subdermal implant of some kind." "A tracking chip?" Victor asked from the front, his voice tight with renewed alarm. "Maybe," Olivia said. "But it's not in the standard location for pet microchips. This is something different." Maxwell's mind raced. "Can you remove it?" Olivia hesitated. "Yes, but not here. I need better light, proper tools." "We can't go back to any of our usual places," Noah said from behind the wheel. "If they found the boathouse, they might know about the others." "I know where to go," Maxwell decided after a moment of consideration. "The old hunting cabin near Gloucester, Olivia's grandfather's place." "It hasn't been used in years," Olivia noted. "Exactly why it's perfect," Maxwell replied. "And it's stocked with medical supplies. Your grandfather was nothing if not prepared." As the van wound its way through the back roads of Massachusetts, Maxwell kept one hand resting lightly on Ranger's flank, monitoring the rise and fall of his breathing. The dog's eyes remained fixed on him, conveying a silent understanding that transcended species. "We're going to figure this out," Maxwell promised quietly. "Whatever happened to your partner, whoever these people are, we're going to find the truth." In the front seat, Victor glanced back at them, his expression a mixture of resignation and determination. "You realize what you're doing, right? You're declaring war on people with serious resources, serious power." Maxwell met his gaze steadily. "I'm already at war with them, have been for years. I just didn't know it until now." The implant beneath Ranger's skin was more than just a tracking device. It was confirmation that whatever Marcus Bailey had stumbled upon went far beyond ordinary criminal activity. Someone had wanted to monitor this K-9 officer specifically, which meant Ranger wasn't just a witness to a crime, he was a target. And as the miles passed beneath them, Maxwell couldn't shake the feeling that finding this dog wasn't coincidence, but convergence. The past he'd tried to escape finally catching up to him, offering not just danger, but perhaps, at long last, answers. Salem's crooked streets seemed to fold in on themselves like a puzzle designed to confuse outsiders. Maxwell navigated them with practiced ease, the motorcycle rumbling beneath him as he led Victor through the historic district. The early morning fog clung to the colonial buildings, shrouding the witch city in an appropriate mystique. "You sure she'll help us?" Victor asked as they parked their bikes in an alley behind a weathered brick building. "Last I heard, you two didn't exactly part on good terms." Maxwell removed his helmet, his expression unreadable. "Eliza doesn't hold grudges, she collects debts." "And which are we adding to today?" "Both, probably," Maxwell admitted. They climbed the fire escape to the third floor, avoiding the building's main entrance with its security cameras. Maxwell paused at a window with a nearly invisible blue light glowing from its corner, Eliza's signaled that her security system was active. He tapped a specific pattern on the glass. Moments later, the window slid open, revealing a dimly lit apartment beyond. 6 years of silence, and now twice in 1 week. I'm starting to think you miss me, Stone, came a dry voice from inside. Eliza, cipher. Morgan stood backlit by the glow of multiple computer monitors, her silhouette lean and sharp-edged. As they climbed through the window, she stepped into better light, revealing a woman in her late 30s with steel-gray eyes and a shock of silver running through her otherwise dark hair. Premature, the result of stress rather than age. You called me first, Maxwell reminded her, straightening to his full height. A courtesy warning, she replied, closing the window behind Victor. Old friends showing up in my facial recognition alerts tends to make me nervous. The apartment looked like the bridge of a spaceship designed by a paranoid genius. Monitors covered one wall, displaying news feeds, security camera footage, and scrolling code. A complex server setup hummed in one corner, while various electronic devices in various states of disassembly covered a large workstation. Nice place, Victor commented, eyeing the impressive tech array. Government paying well these days? Eliza's smile didn't reach her eyes. I haven't worked for the government in a long time. Not officially. She turned to Maxwell. You look terrible. Haven't slept. Clearly. She gestured to a battered sofa. Sit. Coffee's fresh. Maxwell remained standing. We don't have time for hospitality. Eliza studied him with practiced scrutiny, the kind developed during years of interrogation training. What kind of trouble are you in? The kind that involves Jeremy Frost. The name landed like a stone in still water. Eliza's expression hardened, the last vestiges of her sardonic welcome vanishing. Show me, she said simply. Maxwell produced a small thumb drive, containing the footage from Ranger's camera. Eliza took it without comment and plugged it into a standalone system, one obviously designed for analyzing potentially compromised data. As the footage played, her fingers flew across the keyboard, enhancing images, freezing frames, her focus absolute. When it ended, she leaned back, arms crossed. Where's the dog now? Safe, Maxwell answered, but injured and carrying hardware. He explained about the microchip they'd discovered embedded in Ranger. Eliza's expression grew increasingly troubled. Not standard K9 unit procedure, she noted, and you need me to extract whatever's on it. Can you? Of course I can, she replied with the casual confidence of someone stating a fundamental truth. But I'll need the chip itself. Victor shook his head. Too risky to move him again. Those guys found our boathouse within hours. Then I'll have to come to you, Eliza said, already gathering equipment into a weathered messenger bag. But first, let's see what else we can learn. She turned to her main system and began typing, her fingers a blur over the keyboard. The partial plate from the SUV, cross-referencing with registered vehicles. Multiple windows opened and closed on her screen at dizzying speed. Hargrove Enterprises, she announced after several minutes. Subsidiary company, technically, but the paper trail leads straight back to the senator. We already suspected that, Maxwell said. Suspicion isn't proof, Eliza countered, still typing. And there's more. That harbor facility where Officer Bailey was taken. It received a shipment 2 days ago from a ghost freighter, a vessel officially decommissioned 3 years ago. She pulled up shipping manifests, highlighting discrepancies. Cargo listed as agricultural equipment, but weight distribution is all wrong. And look at the routing. It made an unscheduled stop near Sevastopol. Weapons, Victor concluded. Or something worse, Eliza murmured, her focus intensifying. She opened another window, this one displaying personnel files. Bailey wasn't just any K9 officer. Before Boston PD, he was military police, specialized in detecting explosives and chemical agents. Maxwell's expression darkened. And Ranger, one of the best detection dogs in the program. They were transferred to Boston PD's Specialized Harbor Unit 16 months ago. She paused, looking up at Maxwell. Right after Senator Hargrove joined the Senate Defense Committee. The implications hung heavy in the air. Maxwell paced the small apartment, connecting dots that formed an increasingly disturbing picture. Bailey wasn't just in the wrong place at the wrong time, he said. He was specifically positioned to monitor shipments, and someone wanted him there. Or wanted him removed, Eliza added. Check this. His transfer paperwork, the authorizing signature. She enlarged a document highlighting a name. Catherine Walters, Maxwell read aloud. That's the name Bailey told Ranger to find before he was taken. Eliza nodded. Boston PD detective, worked organized crime, now assigned to Harbor Patrol oversight. Her fingers flew over the keyboard again. No red flags in her background, but... She trailed off, her expression changing as new information appeared on her screen. What is it? Maxwell pressed. Her father was David Walters, former FBI, specialized in political corruption cases. Died in what was ruled a suicide 4 years ago, right in the middle of a major investigation. Eliza looked up, her eyes meeting Maxwell's. The target of that investigation was never made public. The pieces were falling into place with alarming clarity. Maxwell and Victor exchanged glances, the gravity of their situation becoming increasingly apparent. We need to get back, Maxwell said. The chip in Ranger might be the key to all of this. As they prepared to leave, Eliza handed Maxwell a small device. Portable scanner. Use it to check yourselves and your vehicles for trackers. If Frost is involved, he'll have resources you can't imagine. She hesitated, then added more softly. The night in Kabul, when Parker didn't come back. I always thought there was more to that story. Maybe now we'll finally learn what really happened. Maxwell's jaw tightened at the mention of his former K-9 partner. Maybe. As they climbed back through the window, Eliza called after them. Stone, that message on the footage. Albany knows everything? Albany is Hargrove's Secret Service code name. Whatever Bailey found, it goes straight to the top. Outside, the morning fog had begun to lift, but the path ahead seemed darker than ever. Maxwell and Victor mounted their motorcycles in silence, each processing the implications of what they'd learned. Neither noticed the black sedan parked 3 blocks away, its driver speaking quietly into a phone as he watched them through high-powered binoculars. Target located, he reported, moving to Phase 2. The winding roads leading out of Salem should have offered Maxwell a sense of relief. Instead, a prickling sensation at the base of his neck told him something wasn't right. 20 minutes into their journey back to Gloucester, he confirmed his suspicion with a quick glance in his side mirror. We've got company, he said into the helmet comm, his voice level despite the surge of adrenaline. Black sedan, 2 cars back. Victor's response came immediately. Same one from Salem? Can't be sure, but they're keeping pace, maintaining distance. Coincidence? Victor suggested without conviction. 3 identical turns off the main road. Not likely. Maxwell calculated their options. The direct route back to Olivia's cabin would lead their pursuers straight to Ranger. Unacceptable. Split up at the next intersection, Maxwell instructed. You take the coastal route. I'll head inland, see if they follow. Victor's laugh was short and bitter. Playing bait? Just like old times. The intersection approached. A fork where Route 127 split toward Manchester by the sea or deeper into the forested interior. Victor leaned right without signaling, accelerating along the coastal highway while Maxwell veered sharply left, gunning his engine as he disappeared into the tree-lined road. In his mirror, he watched the sedan hesitate, then follow him. Confirmation, if he needed it, that they were indeed the targets. They're on me, Maxwell reported. Clear shot, back to the cabin. Don't stop for anything. The road narrowed, winding through dense woods. Under other circumstances, Maxwell might have enjoyed the ride, the powerful motorcycle responding to his every command, the challenge of each tight curve. Now, he focused solely on maintaining his lead while looking for an opportunity to lose his pursuer. The sedan stayed doggedly on his tail, closing the gap on straightaways, falling back on curves where the motorcycle held the advantage. The driver was skilled, professional, matching Maxwell's evasive maneuvers with practiced precision. Up ahead, Maxwell spotted his chance. A logging road barely visible among the trees, unmarked and easily missed if you didn't know what to look for. He discovered it years ago during one of his solitary rides. Without signaling, he cut sharply right, the motorcycle briefly going airborne as it left the paved road and landed hard on the dirt track. The sedan shot past, unable to match the sudden turn, but Maxwell knew they would double back quickly. The logging road was rough, rutted from years of heavy equipment and neglect. Maxwell navigated the challenging terrain at dangerous speed, the motorcycle bucking beneath him as it absorbed the impact of rocks and potholes. After half a mile, the track split again. He took the left fork, which led deeper into the forest before eventually connecting with a fire road. He'd bought himself minutes, not more. Emerging onto the wider fire road, Maxwell accelerated, putting distance between himself and the likely point of pursuit. Then, spotting a dense thicket, he cut the engine and wheeled the motorcycle off the path, concealing it behind a fallen tree. He unholstered his weapon and moved into position with a clear view of the approach. The waiting was always the hardest part. Combat had taught Maxwell the value of patience, but it went against his natural instinct for action. He controlled his breathing, listening to the forest sounds around him, alert for any disruption in the natural rhythm. 10 minutes passed before he heard the distinctive crunch of tires on gravel. The black sedan appeared, moving slowly now, the driver scanning the surroundings. Maxwell remained perfectly still, watching as the vehicle crept past his hiding spot. The sedan stopped about 50 yards ahead. The driver's door opened and a man stepped out, tall, dressed in tactical gear, with the unmistakable bulge of a shoulder holster. He surveyed the area with practiced eyes, then spoke into a radio. Maxwell strained to hear. "Lost visual. No." Heading back to intercept the second target. The man returned to the sedan, executing a 3-point turn before heading back the way he'd come. Maxwell waited until the sound of the engine faded completely before returning to his motorcycle. "Victor," he said into his comm. "Status." Static greeted him. Either Victor was out of range, or, worse possibility, he wasn't able to respond. Maxwell kick-started his bike and took the fire road in the opposite direction from the sedan. It would add 20 minutes to his journey back to the cabin, but he needed to ensure he wasn't followed. The old hunting cabin looked undisturbed as Maxwell approached cautiously, cutting his engine and coasting the final 100 yards. Victor's motorcycle was parked around back, partially concealed by a tarp, a good sign. Still, Maxwell drew his weapon before approaching the door, knocking their established pattern. Too short, one long, too short. Noah opened the door, relief washing over his face. About time. We were getting worried. Inside, the cabin's main room had been transformed into an improvised medical and surveillance center. Olivia sat beside Ranger on a blanket-covered cot, monitoring an IV drip she'd fashioned. The German shepherd looked alert, his eyes immediately finding Maxwell as he entered. Victor stood by the window, his posture tense. "Took you long enough." "Had to take the scenic route," Maxwell replied, holstering his weapon. "We were followed out of Salem. Black sedan, professional driver, armed passenger." "Damn it," Noah muttered. "Hey, how'd they find you so quickly?" "That's the question," Maxwell agreed, crossing to check on Ranger. The dog's tail thumped weakly against the cot, a good sign. "How's he doing?" he asked Olivia. "Better than expected. The antibiotics are working, and he's strong. I've extracted the chip." She pointed to a small metal object in a petri dish on the table. "Sophisticated tech. I've never seen anything like it." "Eliza's on her way," Maxwell informed them. "She'll know what to make of it." Victor moved away from the window, his expression grim. "We need to discuss our next move. These people aren't going to stop. If they tracked you to Salem that quickly, they've got resources beyond what we can handle. We hand everything over to the authorities, Noah suggested. Maxwell shook his head. What authorities? We don't know how high this goes or who's compromised. Bailey's own department isn't looking for him. That tells us something. A tense silence fell over the room, broken only by Ranger's gentle panting. The dog's eyes remained fixed on Maxwell, as if waiting for his decision. There's something else, Olivia said quietly. While you were gone, I ran some additional tests on Ranger's blood. There are trace elements I can't identify, synthetic compounds that shouldn't be in a healthy dog system. What kind of compounds? Maxwell asked. That's just it. I don't know. My equipment here is limited. But whatever they are, they're designed to bond with specific neural receptors. The implication sent a chill through the room. Before anyone could respond, Noah's laptop emitted a soft alert. He moved to check it, his expression darkening. Police bulletin, he reported. They've found our boathouse, and they're identifying the Iron Raptors as persons of interest in the disappearance of Officer Marcus Bailey and his K-9 partner. They're framing us, Victor said, his voice tight with anger. Of course they are, Maxwell replied, his mind racing ahead to their dwindling options. It's the perfect cover. We're already seen as outlaws. Who would question our involvement? The sound of tires on gravel outside silenced them all. Maxwell and Victor drew their weapons simultaneously, moving to defensive positions by the windows. Single vehicle, Noah whispered, checking the perimeter camera feed on his laptop. Not the sedan from before. It's a police cruiser. Maxwell exchanged a grim look with Victor. Looks like our time just ran out. The police cruiser's headlights cut through the cabin's curtains, casting long shadows across the floor. Maxwell signaled for everyone to hold position as he edged closer to the window, staying out of sight. Single occupant, he whispered, observing the driver exit the vehicle. Female, early 30s. The woman approached cautiously, her hand resting on her holstered weapon. She wore plain clothes, dark jeans and a leather jacket. But her stance and vigilant scan of the surroundings marked her unmistakably as law enforcement. That's Catherine Walters, Noah confirmed, angling his laptop to show her personnel file. Boston PD detective, Bailey's supervisor. And the person he told Ranger to find, Maxwell added, his mind racing through scenarios, none of them good. Victor's grip tightened on his weapon. Could be a trap. Or our only chance, Maxwell countered. He turned to Olivia. Get Ranger into the back room. Noah, wipe the laptop. Be ready to move. As Detective Walters approached the door, Maxwell made his decision. He holstered his weapon and moved to the center of the room. What are you doing? Victor hissed. Testing a theory. Maxwell crossed to the door and opened it just as Walters raised her hand to knock. Surprise flashed across her face, quickly replaced by steely determination. Her hand moved to her weapon. Maxwell Sullivan, she stated flatly. I've been looking for you. Clearly, Maxwell replied, remaining in the doorway, blocking her view of the cabin's interior. How'd you find us? I'm a detective, she answered, her tone suggesting the question was beneath her. Where's the dog? Maxwell studied her. The tense posture, the shadows under her eyes, the way she continuously scanned their surroundings. This wasn't just a cop doing her job. This was personal. Why did Marcus Bailey tell Ranger to find you? The question caught her off guard. Her eyes widened slightly before narrowing with renewed suspicion. You've seen the footage. I have. A tense silence stretched between them, broken only by the distant call of a night bird. Catherine glanced back at her cruiser, then leaned closer. We need to talk, she said, her voice dropping, but not out here in the open. Maxwell hesitated, then stepped aside. Catherine entered, her hand still near her weapon. Victor greeted her with his shotgun aimed squarely at her chest. That's not necessary, Maxwell said, closing the door. Says you, Victor replied, without lowering the shotgun. Catherine surveyed the room, her gaze lingering on the medical supplies and surveillance equipment. "Where is he?" she asked again. Before Maxwell could answer, a soft whine came from the back room. Ranger appeared in the doorway, having somehow pushed past Olivia. The German shepherd limped forward, his tail wagging weakly at the sight of Catherine. "Ranger!" she breathed, her professional demeanor cracking at the edges. She holstered her weapon and knelt, allowing the dog to approach her. Ranger sniffed her hands, then pressed his head against her palm in a gesture of familiarity and trust. The tension in the room shifted subtly. Maxwell nodded to Victor, who reluctantly lowered his shotgun. "He knows you," Maxwell observed. "I trained with Marcus and Ranger for 6 months before they were assigned to Harbor Patrol." Catherine gently examined Ranger's bandaged wounds, her expression darkening. "You've been treating him?" Olivia stepped forward. "Gunshot wounds. He's stable now, but he needs proper veterinary care." Catherine looked up at Maxwell, her professional mask firmly back in place. "Bailey's been missing for 3 days. The official line is that he went rogue, possibly killed in a smuggling operation gone wrong. They're saying you took Ranger after an altercation." "And you don't believe that," Maxwell stated. "Would I be here alone if I did?" She stood, keeping one hand on Ranger's head. "Marcus was investigating something big. Something that scared him enough that he set up contingency plans. If anything happened to him, Ranger was programmed to find me." "Programmed?" Noah asked, his interest piqued. Catherine nodded. "The chip. It contains coordinates, data, and a trigger tied to a specific command phrase. Bailey was thorough." Maxwell exchanged glances with his team. "We have the chip," he confirmed. "Our tech expert is on her way to analyze it." "Your tech expert?" Catherine raised an eyebrow. "I have resources, legitimate law enforcement resources. That could help." "Do you?" Maxwell challenged. "Because from where I'm standing, your department seems eager to pin this on us rather than look for one of their own." Catherine's expression hardened, but she didn't disagree. "There are complications." "Like Senator Hargrove?" Maxwell pressed, watching her reaction closely. The detective's eyes narrowed. "What do you know about Hargrove?" "We know his security chief, Jeremy Frost, led the team that ambushed Bailey. We know Hargrove Enterprises owns the shipping operation where it happened, and we know Bailey found something there that was worth silencing him for." Catherine was silent for a long moment, clearly weighing her options. Finally, she nodded. "Operation Phoenix," she said quietly. "That's what Marcus called it, a private military operation using Hargrove's political position to facilitate weapons trafficking, but it's bigger than that." "How much bigger?" Olivia asked. "I don't know exactly. Marcus was gathering evidence, building a case carefully. Whatever he found that night was the missing piece." She looked down at Ranger. "That's why he made sure Ranger escaped with the footage and the chip. It's all connected." Maxwell processed this information, the pieces aligning with what Eliza had discovered. Why come to us? Why not take this to the FBI or state police? "Because Hargrove chairs the committee that oversees law enforcement funding for the entire state," Catherine replied grimly. "He has allies everywhere. After Marcus disappeared, I tried to open an official investigation. I was shut down within hours, told to respect the process. When I pushed back, my captain suggested I take some personal leave." The implication was clear. Catherine Walters was as isolated within the system as they were outside it. "So, what's your plan?" Victor asked, skepticism evident in his tone. "Find Marcus if he's alive. Expose Hargrove and Operation Phoenix either way." Her gaze met Maxwell's. "I thought you might have similar goals." Maxwell considered her words carefully. An alliance with a police detective carried significant risks, but Catherine's knowledge and access could prove invaluable. More importantly, Ranger trusted her, and Maxwell had learned to respect a dog's judgment of character. "We might," he acknowledged, "but trust works both ways, Detective." Catherine's phone buzzed before she could respond. She checked it, her expression growing urgent. "We have a problem. APB just went out for your entire group, armed and dangerous." In connection with Officer Bailey's disappearance, they've added potential domestic terrorism charges. They're escalating, Noah said, trying to ensure shoot-first protocols if you're located. We need to move, Maxwell decided. This location is compromised. Catherine nodded in agreement. I know somewhere we can go. Off the grid, not connected to any of us. But we need to leave now. The sound of an approaching vehicle cut through the night, headlights sweeping across the cabin windows, everyone tensed, weapons ready. But Maxwell recognized the distinctive sound of the engine. It's Eliza, he said, relieving some of the tension. Victor moved to the window to confirm. She's alone. As Eliza's car came to a stop beside Catherine's cruiser, Maxwell made his decision. Two worlds were colliding tonight. His past military life with its secrets and betrayals, and the present danger threatening his chosen family. Whatever came next would require all of them working together. Pack up, he ordered. We roll out in 5 minutes. Catherine watched him with careful assessment. You still haven't said if we have a deal. Maxwell glanced at Ranger, who sat alert despite his injuries, looking between them with intelligent eyes. The dog had chosen his loyalty. Perhaps it was time Maxwell did the same. We have a common enemy, he replied finally. For now, that's enough. The abandoned fishing cabin perched on the rocky headland of Cape Ann like a weathered sentinel, its salt-stained clapboards blending into the gray morning mist. Catherine had chosen well, accessible only by a narrow, rutted dirt road that discouraged casual visitors, yet providing clear sightlines in all directions. The perfect place to regroup. Inside, the space was spare, but functional. A main room with a wood stove, a small kitchenette, and 2 cramped bedrooms. The musty scent of disuse hung in the air as the unlikely allies established their temporary headquarters. My father's weekend retreat, Catherine explained, lighting the stove, hasn't been used in years. Not even my department knows about it. Maxwell noted the strategic positioning of the windows, the multiple exit points, the way the cabin was nestled against granite outcroppings that provided natural cover. Your father had interesting priorities for a vacation home. FBI tends to create certain habits, she replied simply, especially in his division. Eliza had claimed the rickety table by the largest window, her equipment already set up and humming. Her fingers moved rapidly across her keyboard as she worked to crack the encryption on the microchip they'd extracted from Ranger. Military-grade security protocols, she muttered, more to herself than the others. Specifically designed to resist to standard decryption. Bailey wasn't taking any chances. Catherine approached, watching over Eliza's shoulder. Marcus was paranoid about operational security, said he learned that from his time in Afghanistan. Eliza glanced up. Smart man. Not smart enough to stay alive, Victor commented from where he stood by the door, keeping watch. Catherine's jaw tightened. We don't know that he's dead. If Frost has him, 3 days is a long time, Maxwell said quietly. He was sitting on the floor beside Ranger, who lay on a makeshift bed of blankets. The dog's condition had stabilized, but he still needed rest to recover fully. Frost wouldn't kill him immediately, Eliza interjected, without looking up from her screen. Not if Bailey has information they need. They'd want to extract everything he knows first. The clinical assessment hung heavy in the room. Catherine paced near the window, tension visible in every line of her body. Tell us about Operation Phoenix, Maxwell prompted, redirecting the conversation. What exactly was Bailey investigating? Catherine gathered her thoughts. It started with irregularities in shipping manifests, cargo containers with mismatched weight declarations, inspection documents with forged signatures, small discrepancies that most people would miss. But Bailey didn't miss them, Noah surmised from where he was reinforcing the cabin's rudimentary security system. Marcus has had a photographic memory. Details others overlook, he catalogs, Catherine confirmed. He noticed patterns, specific containers, always from the same origin points, always cleared by the same customs officials. Corrupt officials on Hargrove's payroll, Maxwell deduced. Catherine nodded. At first we thought it was just weapons smuggling. Hargrove Enterprises has defense contracts. They could move military hardware without much scrutiny. But then Marcus found something else. She pulled out her phone, scrolling to a photo before passing it to Maxwell. The image showed a partial shipping manifest with a technical designation highlighted. CBRN components, Maxwell read aloud, his expression darkening. Chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear. Exactly, Catherine confirmed. Not complete weapons. That would trigger too many alarms, but specialized components that, when assembled with more common parts, would create weapons of mass destruction, Olivia finished, looking up from tending to Ranger. Off the books, WMDs. Who's the buyer? Victor asked sharply. That's what we don't know, Catherine admitted. Marcus was close to identifying the network when he disappeared. He believed Hargrove was using his position on the Defense Committee to facilitate sales to non-state actors, terrorist groups, insurgencies, private military companies. For profit? Noah asked. Partly. But Marcus suspected there was a larger agenda. Political destabilization in specific regions, creating security threats that would justify expanded military contracts. Catherine's voice was tight with controlled anger. Crisis capitalism at its finest. While they talked, Eliza had been working intently, her expression one of deep concentration. Suddenly she straightened. I'm in, she announced. Everyone gathered around her laptop as a series of encrypted files appeared on the screen. It's a data cache, Eliza explained, scrolling through the index. Financial records, shipping routes, surveillance photos. She opened one folder, revealing dozens of images. Bailey was thorough. The photos showed men in tactical gear loading crates into unmarked vans, meetings between officials in suits and figures whose faces were deliberately obscured, dock workers receiving thick envelopes of cash. There's more, Eliza continued, opening another file. GPS coordinates, timestamps, scheduled deliveries. She looked up at Catherine. Your partner built a comprehensive intelligence package. Enough to take down Hargrove? Maxwell asked. Eliza hesitated. It's compelling, but without direct evidence linking Hargrove himself. There has to be more, Catherine insisted. Marcus wouldn't have risked everything without a smoking gun. As they spoke, Ranger suddenly lifted his head, ears perked forward. The German shepherd struggled to his feet, moving to Eliza's laptop with purpose. He nudged her hand with his nose, then looked pointedly at the screen. What is it, boy? Maxwell asked, recognizing the behavior of a working dog trying to communicate. Catherine watched Ranger closely. He's indicating something. This is part of his training. She turned to Eliza. Is there any audio file in the data? Something with a voice? Eliza searched quickly, locating an audio folder. Several recordings, all encrypted with a secondary protocol. Try playing one, Catherine suggested. Ranger might be responding to a voice command embedded in the files. Eliza selected the most recent file and pressed play. At first there was only static, then a voice emerged. Marcus Bailey's voice, tense but controlled. Authorization code Sierra Whiskey 496. Activate protocol safehouse. Ranger immediately stood at attention, his focus absolute despite his injuries. The recording continued. Catherine, if you're hearing this, I didn't make it back. The evidence is in the final place we discussed. Ranger knows. Voice activation required Phoenix Rising. The recording ended. Ranger remained alert, waiting. Catherine's face had paled. She knelt beside the German shepherd, gently placing her hand on his head. Phoenix Rising, she said clearly. Ranger's demeanor changed instantly. He moved to the door with purpose, looking back at them expectantly. He wants us to follow him, Catherine said, grabbing her jacket. You can't be serious, Victor objected. He's injured, and it could be miles away. It won't be far, Maxwell said, already moving to join Catherine. Bailey would have ensured the evidence was accessible but secure, somewhere significant to both of them. I'll stay with the data, Eliza offered. There's more encryption to break, and we need to secure what we already have. I'll stay too, Noah added. Keep working on our communications setup. Maxwell nodded, then turned to Olivia. How mobile is he? He shouldn't be running marathons, she replied, but his vitals are strong. Short distances should be manageable. Okay, Maxwell decided. Catherine, Victor, and I will follow Ranger. The rest of you secure this position. If we're not back in 3 hours, we won't be here, Eliza finished pragmatically. I'll have exit protocols ready. As they prepared to leave, Maxwell checked his weapon, then knelt beside Ranger. The dog's intelligent eyes held his gaze steadily. Let's find your partner, he said quietly. Ranger's response was a soft whine and a determined look toward the door. Whatever secrets awaited them, the German shepherd was ready to reveal them, and one step closer to completing his mission. Ranger led them with surprising strength, navigating the rugged coastal path with determination. Despite his injuries, the German shepherd moved with purpose, stopping occasionally to ensure his human companions followed. Catherine kept pace beside Maxwell, with Victor trailing behind, constantly scanning for threats. He's taking us to Black Rock Cove, Catherine realized as they descended toward a secluded inlet. Marcus and I used to train here, isolated enough for tactical exercises, but close to emergency services if needed. The cove was sheltered by towering granite formations, accessible only at low tide. Ranger paused at the narrowest point of access, waiting for them to catch up before continuing toward a cluster of weathered fishing shacks perched above the high water mark. Bailey chose well, Maxwell observed, noting the multiple escape routes and clear sightlines in all directions. Defensible position, limited approach vectors. Ranger stopped at the smallest shack, pawing insistently at the door. Catherine produced a key from her pocket. Emergency rally point, she explained, unlocking the padlock. Standard protocol for undercover operations. Inside the shack was spare but organized. A table, chairs, battery-powered lantern, and a locked metal cabinet. Ranger went directly to the cabinet, sitting before it expectantly. Catherine knelt beside the cabinet, examining the lock. Biometric, she murmured. Marcus's design. She glanced at Ranger, but he always built in redundancies. The dog nudged her hand toward a seemingly blank panel on the cabinet's side. Catherine pressed her palm against it, and a hidden keypad emerged. Voice verification required, announced a computerized voice. Phoenix Rising, Catherine stated clearly. Secondary authentication required. Catherine hesitated, then looked at Ranger. He needs you, she told the dog. Ranger moved forward, placing his muzzle near a small sensor. The cabinet scanned him, then clicked open. Inside lay a waterproof case containing a laptop, external hard drives, and a sealed envelope with Catherine's name. She opened it with trembling fingers, scanning the handwritten note inside. It's from Marcus, she confirmed, her voice tight with emotion. Dated 3 days before his disappearance. Instructions for accessing his secure server, plus... She faltered. GPS coordinates. He says it's where they're holding the assembled components. An underground facility at Hargrove's private estate in the Berkshires. The final piece, Maxwell said, examining the information. This is what got him captured. There's more, Catherine continued, her expression hardening. He identified the buyers, a private military corporation with connections to 3 separate terrorist organizations, and proof of Hargrove's direct involvement, recorded conversations, bank transfers, everything needed for federal prosecution. Victor cursed softly. No wonder they want him silenced. Catherine connected one of the hard drives to her phone. There's a video file, she said, pressing play. Marcus Bailey's face appeared on screen, tired but determined. His final message was brief but clear. He was planning to infiltrate Hargrove's estate to document the facility firsthand. The timestamp showed it was recorded the night of his disappearance. He's there, Catherine realized. If he's alive, Hargrove is holding him at the estate. As if confirming her words, Ranger gave a soft whine, his eyes fixed on Bailey's image with unmistakable recognition. We need to move fast, Maxwell decided. If Hargrove realizes we have this evidence... The distant sound of helicopter rotors cut through the air, growing steadily louder. Too late, Victor warned, peering through the window. Black helicopter, no markings coming in low, they've found us. Back exit, Catherine commanded, snatching the hard drives and laptop. Maxwell grabbed Ranger, who resisted momentarily before allowing himself to be lifted. Victor pulled a smoke grenade from his tactical vest. Northeast corner, there's a drainage tunnel, Catherine explained as they rushed through the rear door. Leads to the next cove. The helicopter's rhythmic thrum intensified overhead. Victor tossed the smoke grenade behind them, its thick plume providing momentary cover as they scrambled down the rocky incline toward a narrow opening, partially hidden by boulders. They're tracking us somehow, Maxwell said, ducking into the low tunnel with Ranger. The dog's breathing was labored, his wounds taking a toll despite his determination. The tunnel was tight, barely tall enough to crouch in, and slick with seawater. They moved quickly, the darkness broken only by Catherine's flashlight. Behind them, muffled shouts and the thunder of boots indicated their pursuers had reached the shack. 50 more yards, Catherine assured them as they pushed forward. There's a boat cached at the exit. The tunnel widened, revealing a small, secluded cove. Nestled against the rocks sat a weathered skiff with an outboard motor. Bailey thought of everything, Victor remarked as they dragged the boat to the water's edge. Survivor's mentality, Maxwell replied, gently placing Ranger aboard. Plan for every contingency. The motor sputtered to life on the second pull. Catherine steered them toward open water just as the armed figures emerged from the tunnel behind them. Gunfire erupted, bullets peptering the water around the skiff. Keep your heads down, Maxwell shouted, returning fire as Victor manned the motor, pushing it to maximum speed. Ranger huddled low, his training evident even in his weakened state. The skiff rounded a rocky promontory, temporarily shielding them from their pursuers. The helicopter reappeared, its searchlight sweeping the water. We can't outrun that, Victor grimaced. We don't need to, Catherine replied, steering toward a series of sea caves along the coastline. We just need to reach the marina 2 miles south. I have a contact there. Maxwell's phone vibrated. A text from Eliza. Cabin compromised. Moving to secondary. Bring evidence. Trust no one. They hit the cabin too, he informed the others. Noah and Eliza are on the move. Catherine nodded grimly. Coordinated attack on all fronts. They're desperate. The helicopter veered off suddenly, heading inland rather than pursuing. That's unexpected, Victor said cautiously. And concerning, Maxwell added, watching its trajectory. They're not giving up. They're changing tactics. As they approached the marina, Catherine cut the engine, allowing them to drift toward a small dock on its far side. An elderly man waited there, his weathered face impassive. Marcus's uncle, Catherine explained quietly. Retired Coast Guard. Will help without questions. The man assisted them ashore, his eyes lingering on Ranger. Bailey's dog, he observed simply, means trouble's brewing. More than you know, Catherine affirmed. We need transportation off the grid. The man nodded toward a battered pickup truck parked nearby. Keys under the mat. Don't tell me where you're going. As they transferred to the truck, Maxwell studied the evidence they'd recovered. The coordinates pointed to Hargrove's estate in the Berkshires, heavily secured and undoubtedly anticipating their arrival now. We need a plan, Victor stated, voicing everyone's thoughts. Maxwell looked at Ranger, then at the assembled evidence documenting Hargrove's treason. We have one shot at this, he said finally. We hit Hargrove where he least expects it. How? Catherine asked. By walking straight through the front door. The Berkshire Mountains loomed dark against the twilight sky as Maxwell adjusted his tie in the rearview mirror. The formal attire felt foreign after years in leather and denim, but the charity gala invitation clutched in Catherine's hand required it. "Eliza's forgery is perfect," Catherine noted, examining the embossed invitation. "Hargrove won't expect us to walk into his fundraiser." "That's precisely why it'll work," Maxwell replied. "Hide in plain sight while Noah and Victor access the underground facility." The rendezvous with Eliza and Noah had been brief, but productive. While Catherine and Maxwell would infiltrate the main house during Hargrove's gubernatorial campaign fundraiser, Victor would guide Noah and Ranger through the estate's service tunnels, using the dog's training to locate both the weapons cache and, hopefully, Marcus Bailey. Eliza, meanwhile, had established a remote command center in a motel room 30 miles away, coordinating their movements and preparing to broadcast the evidence should anything go wrong. "5 minutes to arrival," Maxwell announced as they navigated the winding approach to Hargrove's estate. Ahead, a string of luxury vehicles queued at the security checkpoint. "Victor, status?" he murmured into his concealed comm device. "In position at the service entrance," came the quiet reply. "Perimeter security is heavy but focused on the main event. Noah has looped the cameras in our sector." "Ranger!" "Alert and ready. He senses something. Keeps looking northwest toward the estate's rear grounds." Catherine's grip tightened on the leather portfolio containing Bailey's evidence. "That's where the blueprints showed underground access. Marcus could be there." The security checkpoint approached. Maxwell adopted the easy confidence of wealth and privilege as a guard examined their invitation and IDs. High-quality forgeries courtesy of Eliza's connections. "Welcome to the Hargrove estate, Mr. and Mrs. Cahill," the guard said, waving them through. The mansion's circular drive bustled with valets and guests in formal attire. Political banners proclaimed Hargrove for governor, while waitstaff circulated with champagne. The opulence was calculated to impress, to convey power and stability. "Target identified," Catherine murmured as Senator Edward Hargrove appeared at the entrance, greeting guests with practiced charm. Tall and distinguished, with silver hair and an easy smile, he projected trustworthiness and authority. Maxwell noted the security personnel strategically positioned throughout the grounds. "I count 12 visible guards, likely more inside." "And Frost?" "Not yet. He'll be close to Hargrove." They entered the mansion's grand foyer, accepting champagne flutes for appearances while scanning for threats and exits. Through their earpieces, Victor's voice came tense but controlled. "We've breached the service tunnel. Ranger's behavior confirmed. Something's definitely down here." Catherine maintained her socialite smile while whispering, "Remember, we need 15 minutes of distraction once they reach the underground level." "Time to meet our host," Maxwell replied, steering them toward Hargrove. The senator's handshake was firm, his smile not reaching his eyes as they introduced themselves as potential donors. "The Cahills, wonderful to meet you. I don't believe we've crossed paths before." "New money," Maxwell explained smoothly. "Tech sector." Hargrove nodded appreciatively, but Maxwell caught the flicker of assessment in his gaze. A predator's calculation measuring potential threats. "I hope you'll enjoy the evening," Hargrove said. "My security chief should be here somewhere. He'd love to discuss your cybersecurity interests." As if summoned, Jeremy Frost appeared at Hargrove's shoulder, impeccably dressed but unmistakably dangerous. His eyes met Maxwell's, and for one breathless moment, recognition threatened to surface. "Jeremy," Hargrove said, "the Cahills here are in tech security. Perhaps you could share some insights." Frost's expression remained professional, but Maxwell saw the subtle shift in his stance, a coiled readiness beneath the tailored suit. "I'd be delighted," Frost replied, his eyes never leaving Maxwell's face. The game had begun. The tension between Maxwell and Frost crackled like electricity as they exchanged pleasantries, each man's words carrying double meanings understood only by them. Catherine maintained her cover flawlessly, steering the conversation while subtly checking her watch. They needed to buy time. "Mr. Frost," Maxwell said, "Senator Hargrove's security must be quite the challenge, particularly for a facility of this depth." Frost's eyes narrowed almost imperceptibly. "We leave nothing to chance. Every level of the senator's operation is thoroughly protected." Through his earpiece, Maxwell heard Victor's urgent whisper. "We've reached the underground facility. Security is heavy, but Ranger's found something. He's going crazy at a locked door." "Is there a problem?" Frost asked, noting Maxwell's momentary distraction. "Not at all," Maxwell replied smoothly. "I was just admiring the senator's collection." He gestured toward the display of military memorabilia adorning the walls. "A man who appreciates power and history." "Speaking of history," Catherine interjected, "I believe you and my husband have crossed paths before, Mr. Frost. Afghanistan, perhaps." The calculated risk paid off. Frost's composure faltered for a split second. Recognition dawned in his eyes as he finally placed Maxwell's face beneath the tailored suit and styled hair. "Sullivan," he breathed, hand moving subtly toward his concealed weapon. "I wouldn't," Maxwell warned quietly. "Not with so many witnesses." Before Frost could respond, commotion erupted from the rear of the mansion. Alarms blared and security personnel rushed toward the disturbance. Through their earpieces came Noah's triumphant voice. "We've got him!" "Bailey's alive. Heading to extraction point now." "What's happening?" Hargrove demanded, approaching with barely concealed fury. Frost moved to the senator's side, whispering urgently in his ear. Hargrove's face darkened as he turned to Maxwell and Catherine, his political mask slipping to reveal the ruthless operator beneath. "Whoever you really are," he snarled, "you have no idea what you've done." "I think we do, Senator," Catherine replied, dropping all pretense as she produced her badge. "Detective Catherine Walters, Boston PD. You're under arrest for kidnapping, conspiracy, and treason." Hargrove's laugh was cold. "In my house, surrounded by my security? I don't think so, Detective." "It's not just her," came a new voice. Marcus Bailey appeared at the entrance to the grand hall, supported by Victor and Noah. Though battered and bruised, his eyes burned with righteous anger. Ranger bounded across the room, positioning himself protectively at Bailey's side despite his own injuries. The reunion between dog and handler was brief but powerful, Ranger whining with joy as Bailey knelt to embrace him. The room fell silent, guests backing away from the unfolding drama. "It's over, Hargrove," Maxwell stated. "The evidence has already been transmitted to the FBI, Homeland Security, and every major news outlet. Operation Phoenix is exposed." Frost moved with sudden deadly purpose, drawing his weapon. But before he could fire, Ranger launched himself through the air, taking the security chief down with practiced precision. The gun skittered across the marble floor, stopped by Catherine's foot. "Like I trained him," Bailey said proudly, steadying himself against a column. Outside, sirens wailed as FBI vehicles stormed up the driveway, responding to Eliza's carefully timed anonymous tip, complete with irrefutable evidence. "You can't stop what's coming," Hargrove hissed as federal agents flooded the mansion. "There are others, more powerful than me." "One battle at a time, Senator," Maxwell replied as agents cuffed the politician. In the chaos of arrests and evidence collection that followed, Maxwell found himself standing, with Bailey, Catherine, and the Iron Raptors on the mansion's terrace, watching as Hargrove and Frost were led away. "What happens now?" Victor asked, voicing what they all wondered. "Immunity deals for all of you," Catherine confirmed. "Already arranged through my FBI contacts. Your actions saved lives and prevented a national security disaster." Bailey knelt beside Ranger, checking his wounds with gentle hands. "He never gave up," he said, voice thick with emotion. "Even when I thought I was done for, I knew he'd find a way." "Some partnerships transcend circumstances," Maxwell observed, thinking of Parker and the wounds that might finally begin to heal. As dawn broke over the Berkshire Mountains, casting golden light across the estate grounds. Maxwell felt the weight of years lifting. The ghosts of Afghanistan would never fully disappear, but perhaps they could finally rest easier. "You know," Bailey said, looking up at Maxwell, "Ranger's going to need someone when I retire. My injuries—" He glanced down at his leg, clearly damaged beyond full recovery. Maxwell met Ranger's intelligent gaze, seeing in those amber eyes the same loyalty and purpose that had defined his own life. "I might know someone who'd be interested," he replied. 3 months later, as autumn painted the New England landscape in brilliant color, Maxwell stood on the porch of a small Cape Cod cottage, watching Ranger race along the shoreline. The federal protection program had provided them this new beginning, a quiet life far from their violent pasts. The Iron Raptors still visited, now legitimate business owners thanks to government grants arranged by Catherine. Bailey had become a K-9 training consultant, his expertise ensuring other handlers would benefit from his experience. As for Maxwell, he had found something he'd thought lost forever: peace. Not the empty silence he'd sought in his years with the Raptors, but the genuine peace that comes with purpose and redemption. Ranger returned to his side, pressing against his leg in a gesture of partnership and trust. Two warriors, their battles finally behind them, facing the future together. Justice had been served, and healing could begin. I hope you enjoyed this story. Subscribe to my channel so you don't miss touching stories. Leave a like and then comment below what you thought of the emotional stories. See you in the next video.